Hello everyone, I hope you are having a great summer days, and let me continue our discussion of the population matters in terms of the population data as the basic of the population studies. So every week, as I announced in the syllabus and on the introduction video, so all the lecture slides covered this week will be uploaded on the Friday, because I assume that you need to read the textbook for the chapters assigned based on the syllabus. And even though I post the lecture slide on the Friday night for the study of the weekly quizzes and the final and the midterm and the final exams, but any time I cannot cover everything in this short lecture video or the lecture slides. So again, please read the textbook on the schedule and based on the schedule assigned on the syllabus so that you can have the better understanding of the lecture contents. So anyway, in other ways, the weekly quizzes will be posted on the Friday night so that you can have the Saturday and the Sunday to study and review of the lecture's contents and start the quiz. And I will add more instructions about the weekly quiz because it's basically you can start anytime on the Saturday or Sunday, but once you start the quiz, you will have, for example, 20 or 30 minutes so that you can finish within on that time. But anyways, I want to let you have your more convenient time to start the quiz. So you can start anytime on the weekend days, but once you start the quiz, you will have the limited time, such as 20 minutes or 30 minutes based on the contents of the quizzes. I will upload more detailed post about the quiz so that you can read that before the quiz. In other ways, the more details will be covered in the lecture on other slides and on other page. Anyway, read the textbook is very, very important for you. Knowledge. You learn many things from the courses at the university, and you have learned a lot of the information based on your lectures in your high school and even the middle school or junior high or elementary school. So you learn and you sometimes accept some knowledge based on those lectures and based on the readings and any other on the academic activities you have done so far. So overpopulation matters. For example, some people say the overpopulation, which means if there are many people or too many people in specific area or in specific time, specific continent or country, they would perceive that this is very serious problem. However, some people may say the absolute size of the population is not a big problem, but the discrete distribution matters, because we have very affluent number of the affluent amount of the resources, but these are too narrowly concentrated for the specific people. So most of the people, they lack of the resources or lack of the materials they need to use. So based on your knowledge, but even though you have the same data set, you may interpret that kind of data set in different ways. Okay. So the knowledge is very neutral, but sometimes these are the value oriented. So based on the knowledge and based on the orientation, you can see how do you understand or memorize or accept based on your perspective. So in my lecture, I will provide some of the perspectives so that you can align them and you can try to discuss them based on your acceptance or based on your understanding. So I will provide many theories, but you don't need to always agree, or you don't need to always disagree about that, because agreeing or disagreeing about these contents will be based on your opinion or based on your free choices. But in this lecture, I will just provide some of the introduction of the theory and the facts based on the demographic data or demographic perspectives. So theory part is usually very dry, but I will try my best to have the softer access to those knowledge. So the knowledge from the data. The population is about on the examinations of the population composition, population size, and the relationship and others. So we covered the last lecture. So the knowledge of the population, and these are usually derived from or generated from the data. For example, the mortality rate per 1,000. So instead of the percentages, if these are the rates out of 1,000, we call that these are the crude rates. For example, this is the map of the death rates, but not the death rates over 100 or 100,000 or something, but these are the rates over 1,000. For example, on the color of the very light colors would mean very low rate of the crude death rates, but the darker color means the higher death rates, because the black color, for example, on these are the areas or some of the countries with the 21 or the more than 21 deaths over 1,000. So we would say there are very diverse distribution of the death rates based on this map. But how do we know how do we calculate on the death rates? Usually we calculate and we collect the data from the individual survey or the collection of the data set by the country. So, and if in any ways, we need to collect the data related with the population facts. So this is another graph of on the death rates on the age-specific mortality rates per 100,000, which is the higher the size of the span. And these are the age range as the death rates of the 45 and the 40 and the later 40s and the early 50s and the later 50s. So based on the age range, we can see the transitions or the trends of the death rates. So we can see that the Hungary on this level of the graph say that there are very similar levels of the death rates most of the countries, but the Hungary would have very high death rates because these lines would indicate higher death rates over 100,000 compared with the Japan. There are the relatively smaller number of the deaths per 100,000. So based on this graph, we can simply know that there are many very diverse differentiations or very diverse patterns of the trends of the death rates over the age groups. So based on this data, without this data, we cannot argue that some specific country would have higher or lower death rates. So having the data set of the population data or population facts would be very important resource to make arguments and to make a statement about the population matters. All right. So this graph might be very important or very good example of the population data and how to interpret the population data based on the visualization. Okay. All right. Another data is the population pyramid. We say these are the age compositions, the younger age 0 through 4, 5 through 9, 10 through 14, 15 through 19, and something. So every 5-year interval, we can see that the proportion of the age groups. So it means that in Haiti 2019, 5.7% of the male was the 0 through 4 years old. And were under 0 through 4 years old, and 5.6, and there are a smaller proportion of the people of the population, and on the young 0.1 in the 89, 85, 89. So naturally, the elderly generation, the older generation, if they are older, there are the lower proportion because the highly older people, and they are more likely to die. But compared with the Haiti, the elder generation, over 50, 65, for example, there are the higher proportion of the older adults compared with the Haiti. So the question, the higher crude rates per of older adults in Haiti or Japan. So possibly the Haiti would have the higher crude death rates of the older adults because of the development of technology and the public hygiene and the medical skills or others and medical facilities, Japan would have the lower death rates per 100 or 100,000, 1,000 like that. But we cannot know. We can guess that there are the higher death rates of elderly, but we are not sure. We cannot easily calculate the crude death rates or the very specific death rates from this data. So on this data, this is the death rates on the crude death rates of the Japan and Haiti. Japan had so high. The Haiti has very high death rates over 1,000 compared with the Japan. But eventually, as time goes by, the Japan has higher death rates. I mean, the crude death rate, which is the number of deaths, is over 1,000. So as I mentioned before, the Japan is much more developed compared with the Haiti. However, based on the data, Japan started to have the higher death rates compared with the Haiti. Why? Why that is that? Why there were the more deaths in Japan compared with the Haiti? So this is a very important part because in the previous lecture, I mentioned that the population composition is a big matter and the relationship between the population composition and the population trends or changes would be a very important topic. So, for example, in Haiti, Haiti has very less developed infrastructure, for example, less number of hospitals and less number of the skilled doctors, for example, etc. There are very, very less qualified social infrastructure might increase the higher rates of the crude death rates. However, because the population composition, there are the higher proportion of the younger generation, which means they are more likely to survive, and they are more likely to be healthier than older adults. However, in Japan, even though they are very highly developed, there are the higher proportion of the elderly or the older adults. So genetically or naturally, they would have very high death rates in nature. So because there are more older population in Japan compared to Haiti, because of the higher proportion of elderly or older adults in that country, they would be more likely to have the higher death rates. So on the question, for example, if I make the quiz question like why the Japan has the higher death rates, higher crude death rates than Haiti, you'd say the population composition is a big matter. Or you can say that the Japan has higher death rates because of the population composition or the proportion of the older adults. So that's why the population composition is a big matter.